Hey, this is Sean with the Go Tennis Podcast, powered by Signature Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And if you're a fan of Bull Shark Sports, go to shop.letsgotennis.com and get yourself a hoodie or a hat. Today, this is Youth Sports Talk with Coach Ben Hestley. Today, Coach Ben wants to talk about rotating your lineups. I guess this one is for the coaches and the volunteers. Ben, you ready to talk youth sports?
Yeah, I hope this is going to be a good one. So let's dive into it.
All right, today, Coach Ben wants to talk about how you, coaches and volunteers, can create better habits around rotating your lineups and why he believes this is a good thing. Ben, where do you want to start?
Let's start with a quick story. So as a youth coach, youth baseball coach, this is a passion of mine. It's something I have spent a lot of time doing, is figuring out batting orders and lineups and how to rotate kids equally, make sure every kid on my team is developing in the right way. And so I was at the my son and I are having dinner at our local watering hole, if you will, sports bar recently, and these two gentlemen were sitting very close to us, so far enough away where it didn't look like I was eavesdropping too much. I hope there was a television set above their heads, so if they did look over and see this guy staring at them, I could just play it off like I was watching the game. But they were sitting there, and but close enough where I could sort of pick up on what they were talking about. And I've seen these youth sports dad conversations many times, and so pick up pretty quickly what you're talking about. And what they were talking about clearly was the upcoming game or season and what their batting order and lineup was going to be for their girls softball team. And so these were two volunteer dads going to coach the softball team, and one guy is super into it. I mean, he's got his notebook out. He's got his spreadsheets. He's figured out every position, every possible scenario, and where the kids should be. And then the other dad is sitting there, and he's like doing this, wiping his eyes and his face half the time, and he's completely overwhelmed, right? The guy's clearly like, hey, I just signed up to spend some time with my daughter and her friends, teach her a sport, have some fun, have some lifelong, father-daughter memories. And this guy over here is trying to win the 6U World Series. And I just thought, hey, it's funny, but I've experienced it a lot, and I just hope I can use today's show to give some tips on how you can rotate your lineups and why you should. I mean, why you should is obvious, right? Our job here is not to win 8-year-old championships. Our job here is to make sure that every kid on our team develops and gets a chance to get better.
Okay, so we got to zoom out first and say, okay, why do you believe rotating your lineup is a good thing when winning the 6U girls softball championships is really important to some people?
Why do I think that?
Why do you think rotating your lineup is more important than winning a 12 and under championship at Cooperstown? Is there a softball?
Well, we're not even talking about Cooperstown. I'm talking about today is not even targeted at. We're not talking Cooperstown team.
Okay, so Cooperstown, you don't rotate your lineup.
Well, I did. I would do it all the way. I'd do different strategies as they got a little bit older, and again, you're growing from what looks the least amount like it does on TV to moving towards the most amount TV.
That's a good way to look at it.
You got to remember, we're coaching kids, not small adults, and unfortunately, a lot of the youth, although youth sports is a huge industry, a lot of youth sports is just a carbon copy of what the professional level does. And you as a coach have to realize you're not a professional coach. You're not, or I shouldn't say this, you're not say professional. I'm a professional coach because I do this for a living, but I'm not coaching a professional team. I'm coaching kids. So the approach has to be entirely different, right? And so I think we get lost in that sometimes is we're trying to win games and we convince do the kids want to win the game? Of course they want to win the game, right? But they also want to get to play and have fun and have an enjoyable experience. And if they're always at the bottom of the order, how much fun is that? And a lot of these leagues too have rules like run rules and stuff. So some kids that are at the bottom of the order, they might get on base, but they don't get a chance to run because now you've hit your run limit and the inning has to stop because you've scored too many runs, which often happens at the young like T-ball and coach pitch level because the defense is terrible. I mean, I hope no kids are watching this, but I mean, there's no defense, right? It's hard. It's tough, So it's just hit and run, and then you score 5 runs and you're out. Well, if you're that fifth kid that got the hit and brought the fifth run, or the sixth kid, I should say, that brought the fifth run in, now you have to go back inside.
Good
You
job,
don't get
kid.
to,
Sit back down. Yeah.
don't get to, I mean, I know my daughter like that. She hated that about softball. She was like, "This sucks. Why? I want to run." Like her favorite part, both my kids actually, their favorite part of the game is running the bases. It's like I always tell how I teach base running to little kids. It's like tag. You're playing tag, right? You have to go to these bases, so there's rules. I mean, base running is nothing
Like
more than the
tag.
game of tag.
It's
Kids
not
love
like
tag,
it is
right?
tag.
So
It's
why
literally
are we
tag.
robbing them of that experience that it's the favorite thing that they're going to do in the game?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. But in this case, the specific question, why is it good to rotate? And we'll tie it in because we have a final advice point today. And the goal of youth sports isn't to win the youth sport league or tournament, but that's hard. Sometimes we lose sight of that.
We definitely lose sight of that. Yeah, look, I've done this for a long time, and even I lose sight of it often, and have to check myself. But so it's a difficult concept, right? And our ego gets in the way too, right? We're usually playing against our friends or foes, and you're like, and I've had that myself. I'm like, I think I'm a better coach than this guy across the field from me. Why are we losing? You know, and we're losing because I chose development over competition, and that's going to happen sometimes.
Well, and
You know,
that's another thing we're supposed to teach the kids. Now, I don't say coaches should lose on purpose, but if we've got a baseball team and you got the one kid that's kind of the weakest kid on the team, how much does he get to play? So talk to me about rotating lineups.
yeah. So let's give some concrete advice here. I mean, now we're talking about with tennis. Sorry, we're talking about with baseball is more specific to the batting order because all of these leagues are great. They have participation rules as far as being in the field. So nobody can sit out twice before everyone on the team sits out once. You have rules like there's a minimum amount of. Did I say that right?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Okay.
Got to do
You
the
have
math. Two minus
yeah.
one.
So your stud player can't play all 6 innings, and your weaker guys sit the bench 3 times. Like you have to have some
All teams need to follow that. It's not like you're up
Yeah.
against another team that can leave their stud players.
No, it's a league rule, and you hope that first of all you hope the coaches hold themselves accountable and abide by those rules that are hard copy written in the rules of your league, and you hope the league director holds anyone accountable who doesn't abide by that. But let's just assume that everybody does, right? It's a good rule. The other rules you might have at the T-ball and coach pitch ages might be that everyone has to play a certain number of innings in the infield. So you can't stick little Johnny out there picking his nose in the right field for the whole game. Everybody has to play a certain number of innings in the infield, and nobody can play. There's a maximum number of innings a player can play a single position. So I often see that, and that's a good rule too, because you can't put your like 6-year-old rock star athlete at the pitcher position, and he's going to run down every ground ball and then chase down the runner and tag him. Like he can only do that like 3 innings, and he's got to go play something else. So those are good like participation rules to try to create some sort of balance in positioning. But with the batting order, oftentimes the rule is that everyone on the team gets to bat. So everyone on the roster has to be in the batting order. So, traditional baseball, if you will, is 9 players. If you have 12 on your team, it's called a continuous batting order, or CBO for short. And that means everybody in the roster bats. And that's something that stays pretty constant. I mean, even your high level travel ball teams will do a CBO. So everybody gets to bat on the team. And that's a great thing. But it's not to say you could bat your best player first and your worst player 12th and go right down the line like that. And that's what some coaches do, unfortunately, at the super little level, at the younger levels. And I just think that's a huge mistake. You're not making it fun for the younger kids. You rotate things around, give people opportunities. So some things that I have done in my experience that have worked really well. First thing, let's say you go out game one, you got your lineup, okay? 1 through 12, whatever that is, you decide. Game two, we'll reverse that order. So 12 gets to bat ones. The 11th person from last week is now the second batter in the order, and we just go down the line like that, right? Other things I've done is like start in the middle. So let's say game one, I have my 1 through 12. And then game two, I'll start with the number 7 hitter. 7 swings up to number 1, and then we just work the lineup down that way. I've also come up. So
You just have a hat and have the kids pick their number out
you
of a
could
hat.
you could do that. You could and I'll tell you that in just in a little bit, like some randomized ways. I mean, I've had coaches do like draw out of a hat. I actually had a tennis captain that did that for her lineups for her team. It was awesome. And we'll talk about tennis lineups later, but she did that when she was the captain of her kids' junior team tennis team. Is they would just draw out of a hat what the lineup was each week. Sometimes with tennis you can't do that because there's sandbagging rules and stuff like that. But for UST, it was USTA team. There was no sandbagging rules.
Oh
It was
yeah.
a co-ed team. We had like you had like girls singles, boys singles, girls doubles, boys doubles, and mixed doubles. So she just drew out of a hat who was going to play singles, who was going to play doubles, and who was going to play mixed.
Reminds me of my USTA teams where we're all theoretically the same level. Now I
Yeah,
know why they had me at line one singles. Now I
there
know.
you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so you have the reverse order. You could start in the middle for your baseball or softball batting order, and then swing the middle person up to the top and work from there. I've also put them in pods. So let's just say that you have 12 people. So we got our 1 through 12 again. All right. So next week or next game, 1 through 4, you're going to bump down and be 5 through 8. 9 through 12 now becomes 1 through 4. And then the next week, you just keep bumping them down, right, in groups of 4.
So it sounds like in baseball there's a lot of league rules that help with getting the players that aren't as good onto the field, which I think is great. In the
Yeah.
other sports, I don't remember basketball back in the day. I remember my father as the coach at one point making sure the less athletic kid got to play a lot. And I remember him looking at me while I was sitting on the bench. I happened to be one of the better players at the time that I remember it because we always remember when we were good, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there going, Dad, why? Why is he playing and I'm not? And he had to have this conversation with me. It isn't about winning. And it just didn't. What do you mean it's not about winning? How could it possibly not be about winning?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I mean, some of these, I don't know if some of these kids know. I mean, everybody wants to win, right? The kids are, like you said earlier, like we're not trying to lose the game on purpose, but we do want to create some balance in the development opportunities for all the kids on our team. Other sports, yeah, I know like there's basketball leagues where they'll call a timeout and they'll at 2 minutes until the quarter is over. So at 2 minutes left in the quarter, times ref will stop time and go sub, sub, sub. So anybody who hasn't played that quarter has to come into the game.
See, there you go. Okay. I assume
Um,
basketball would have something like that. Say, if you haven't played any
yeah,
certain kid, this has got to happen.
yeah. I'm soccer. I'm not really sure what they do. I know that.
Assume a lot of things have changed since 40 years ago when I was playing soccer.
Yeah,
But because then you could have the kid who just sits on the bench. You make the high school team, maybe you just sit on the bench. We had the same thing in college tennis. If we go to a tennis system, which is, all right, you know what? You didn't make the lineup this week. You're going to have to earn your way on because at certain levels, winning matters.
yeah. And you're
Certain
talking
levels,
college
you got,
tennis.
you're right.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
But
we
when
can't
you
be
get to high
saying
school,
we can't say like, well, I was in college. They're not in college. They're in kindergarten.
it's a different thing,
Like
right?
let's make it fun and let's rotate. And so it's like they're not going to be. I mean, you're. So I just think that rotating your lineups here is a good thing. It keeps all the kids on the team more engaged. And hey, look, like you said, like your dad did for you, teach the star on the team. If he's the kids know who's good, right? Let him have a go play right field. Let that kid bat 12th, right? You don't. It's good for him to be humbled as well.
I have a distinct memory of soccer, and I got put in goalkeeping by my father because I'd already scored 9 goals or something in some game, some little soccer game we were playing, and my father stuck me in the back like Sean. That's because he couldn't. Maybe it was the time we didn't have enough kids to actually sit me on the bench, but
Yeah.
he wanted me as a part of it, and he knew I wouldn't understand whatever age it was because I was just go go go, like stick the ball in the hole. That's what we're supposed to do. And I'm in goal, and I'm just so frustrated. And at one point, I actually got scored on because the ball just happened to bounce over my head because I was only half paying attention. I was too busy being angry at my father. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, let's make sure all the kids get a chance to experience this. and develop, because it doesn't mean the best kid on the team at the time is ever going to be a professional soccer player, but it means everybody should have a chance to work as a team and learn each sport as much as they possibly can.
Yeah. And like we said before in an episode about treating everybody like they're going to go pro, we don't know. You don't know. You can't tell me that that kid that's rolling out there can barely walk without tripping over himself, is picking his nose, and you're going to put him in right field and pick daisies all season. Like, you can't tell me that that kid is not going to be a stud athlete when he's in high school. You cannot tell me that. You can't tell me that your kid that's slinging the ball across the diamond or can play with a regular ball in tennis at the age of 8 is going to go play on the pro tour, go play in the major leagues. Who knows, right? I think about one thing that my that I've heard before is like, don't worry so much about the kids that struggle early on, like worry about the kids that have it easy, because at some point those kids are going to get smacked in the face with reality as everyone else starts getting better and they're not improving, or they've taken for granted what they have. Then it's going to be more difficult for them at some point. But the basic thing
Not
is,
talk about the fixed mindset kid, please.
yeah,
Don't bring up fixed mindset kid.
yeah, I won. We won this game. We won that game, and we've had that
Yep.
about talking about the effort level and more growth mindset stuff. But back to today's topic about lineups, and we gave you the parents hopefully some advice on the baseball, softball side of batting orders. If you're a tennis team captain, rotate your lineups. Don't put the best kid at number one singles every time, right? If you're playing Alta or whatever, rotate them. Let everybody play singles. Let everybody play doubles. I mean, the same way that little Johnny, that's the worst kid on your team, needs some singles reps. The best kid on your team that's at number one singles, he or she needs to play doubles as well and get some experience. And like you mentioned about the team, like make it a team event, right? And I used to tell when I coached a lot of junior team tennis, my line was always, how many points is line one worth? 8. How many points is line? They're all worth the same amount of points, right? And at the end of the day, in team tennis, you count up how many games that you won versus that team, and that would and then the team who wins the most games wins the match, right? And we have that conversation all the time, right? All the time. I mean, even when USTA went to playing 2 sets, they went to playing 2 sets to 4 with a tiebreaker if you did split sets versus a pro set to 8. And I like that because it looks more like and feels more like a real tennis match, playing 2 sets versus one big set. And so in that format, though, they're still counting the games. There would be times where I would have to talk a kid out of crying and I'd say, hey, look, you actually won the match. Like, you lost the match in sets, the way tennis works. But if you count the games won, you won the match. And that would happen a lot, actually. You win the first sets, like you get blown out, it's 0-4, and then you find yourself and start playing better, and you go to a tiebreaker, but then lose the 10-point breaker. So, but like, dude, you've actually won the match. I think I said that wrong. That couldn't happen mathematically, but
we get it.
yeah.
So, from a tennis perspective, you also have sandbagging issues, which doesn't seem like it's the same necessarily in baseball or basketball, because in this case, you can't just stick your worst player at the top. Even if you just say, well, I'm rotating my lineup, you're going to catch some flack for that. But
yeah, some rules have, or sorry, some leagues have sandbagging rules with tennis, so you can't do that. But you also have two lines
to not rotate as much.
Yeah, but you also have a situation where you have 2 lines of singles. So you could put, okay, your better players rotate this one singles line, and your weaker players rotate, or less experienced players, however you want to term it, play the number 2 singles line. So there's opportunities for kids to play singles and doubles.
Right.
There's no rule that says, all the rule says, the sandbagging rules are basically like, if you want, you can't move a winning line over a losing line or whatever. So if I'm playing line one singles, what's that?
Mix them up. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, mix them up, right?
That's the whole point.
I mean, that's the whole point. Other things you can do is invite, like, so if you're a team captain of a tennis team, oftentimes we would have more players than we had in the lineup spots available. So I know sometimes people are struggling to put a lineup together each week, but if you do have extra players, ask the other captain, like, hey, do you have any extra players too, or would one of your players want to play a second match? Because these matches don't last very long. And we would do that oftentimes. We bring another player, and they would play a little pickup match, or friendly, or whatever you want to call it, and it just get more kids on the court and get them more reps. That's what this is all about. Yeah, but in baseball and softball, soccer, probably even definitely basketball. I mean, we're playing these mass team sports. Like, it doesn't matter who leads off. It honestly doesn't. You know.
Great. So, what's your final advice? If you got one thing you can tell me.
Well, when I have to check myself and I feel myself getting too much on the competitive side of these youth sports games, I'm reminded of something that our league director, when I was volunteering to coach my son's team, something he always said to us, and it always stuck with me, was your job as the coach is not to win the league championship. Even though we do have playoffs and there is a little ring or trophy or something at the end, your job is not to win the league championship. Your job is to make sure that all 12 of your kids sign up next season.
It's profound in a way if you slow down for a second and think about it. It is profound. That is the point. Did they enjoy it enough to sign up again? Did you keep your customer? Is more important than one league season's success.
100%. 100%. Couldn't say it better myself.
All right, done. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And we're going to have, Ben, you're going to put together a worksheet for us that we're going to be able to put out. So we'll stick that in the show notes as well. So anybody paying attention, anybody listening, we'll put a lineup rotation worksheet with some of Ben's best ideas, his top 5 or more ideas.
How many I got written down here? But I'll put it together so you at least have something in front of your face and don't have to go back and what did he say? And although you should watch the show multiple times. No, but so you have something visible in front of your face that you can go to and give you some ideas on most effective ways to rotate your batting orders.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. This has been Youth Sports Talk with Coach Ben Hestley. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
All right. Enjoy those sports games. Remember, no matter what happens, it's really not that big a deal.